All right. So I saw this in The Athletic today. It was a poll done by a bunch of executives, it looks like, in sports. And so, as you see here on the screen, this is like their introductory blurb, few paragraphs talking about like what this poll is. And I think it's good to mention this before getting into this because I feel like maybe some people would just look at the rankings and they won't actually read this part, which is important for context. But here it is. At the start of each season this year, The Athletic polled 40 executives and coaches in each of the four major leagues MLB, NBA, NFL, and NHL and asked them to rank the top five front offices in order in their respective sport. So, just right off the top there, at the start of each season, so that doesn't include what happened in this Padres season, this past season, at the start, which remember at the start, there were a lot of question marks about this Padres team. Jackson Merrill had not been the rookie of the year, in my opinion, in the National League, or at least have been the second place finisher in the rookie of the year. Jurickson Profar and Michael King and all the great things that happened this year for the Padres, that had not happened yet. So when you have that context, I can understand why the Padres front office was not ranked in the top 70, and you're also competing against other sports, and as well rank the top five front offices. And in baseball, again, going into this season, if I were to rank the top five front offices, I probably would not be including the Padres, even when I have a bias towards the Padres, obviously, because I'm a Padres fan. And I'm a supporter of AJ Preller's. Um, they just missed the playoffs the year before. And again, there were question marks, payroll decreasing, trade Juan Soto, what was going to happen there. So I do understand that. I just wonder, why did the Athletic want to publish this now and rank, these top 70 front offices in all the four major sports if I'm reading this correctly, these are rankings from the start of each season this year. So that was in March, February, whenever they asked these guys, these executives, these questions. So yeah, by the way, if going into this season, who I would have picked, I would have picked the Dodgers. I would have picked Andrew Friedman. I would have picked Brian Cashman, although I know there's a lot of Yankees fans that may not be the biggest fans of him. I would probably pick David Stearns. I know he was just starting with the Mets, but I probably would have picked him just because of his track record. I probably would have picked the Tampa Bay Rays, Eric Neander, probably, yeah. So that's what, four? Dodgers, Rays. Do I say Mets? Actually, that's three, sorry. After that, I like Dave Dombrowski because he goes all out, but he also has been provided with a lot of money as well. I would probably point to a team like the Guardians, where they have constraints on them, but it seems like they figure ways to have solid rosters pretty much year in year out, make the postseason a good amount. I wouldn't have said the Royals going into the year because all of this hadn't happened yet. So not them. What I'm at 4 right now. Oh, the Braves. Alex Anthopoulos. Duh. Sorry. I was blanking on him. So yeah, that would be my 5 before, and that's me before I even think about the Padres. But I'm also biased, and I'm still like thinking about 2024 and what happened this year. And this was, again, if you read it, at the start of each season this year, the Athletic polled 40 executives and coaches in each of the 4 leagues, and including one of them, Major League Baseball, right? So it says here, polled the same number of executives and coaches each time and used the same scoring system to rank the front offices. First place votes were worth 10 points, second place 7, third place 5, fourth place 3, and fifth place 1. The Athletic then published the front office rankings from the various leagues throughout 2024. So they did this throughout 2024. I don't remember when they did this for Major League Baseball. But I still don't put as much stock as I was going to in this because of them saying that this was at the start of the Major League Baseball season, at least for the Major League Baseball teams. They say at the bottom here, this isn't a scientific comparison of these front offices, but rather a ranking of which ones are viewed as the best by their direct competitors. Also, why I wanted to hit on this was because, well, one, the Padres, yeah, they weren't a top 70 front office, spoiler. But also some of the teams that were put in this, and specifically Major League Baseball teams, because I'm not going to be focusing on the Dallas Stars or the Oklahoma City Thunder here. But the Thunder were number one. The Dodgers were number two, which I understand it because, yes, Andrew Friedman, he's done a great job with some of the lesser moves. Obviously, someone like Max Muncy coming over from the A's. I think of Chris Taylor when he was with the Mariners, and then he comes over to the Dodgers, and look how important he was. Or whether that's bringing back Kike Hernandez, and look what happens there. But it's also nice when you have a huge TV deal and you're allowed to, defer $600+ million on a contract because your ownership can afford that. It's okay. And have like 6 contracts, $100+ million, and a lot of those $300+ million. Do the Padres have that? Yes, but we can't compare the Padres' resources and the Dodgers' resources financially. So that obviously gives Andrew Friedman an advantage. But again, I did mention the Rays. If I would have ranked my 5 Major League Baseball front offices, and they have limits. So I'm still, don't get me wrong, for those Dodger fans that are watching this, because you still are paying attention to a Padres offseason YouTube channel. I know you are. I see you in the comments. For those Dodger fans, I'm still respecting Andrew Friedman, but I think at the same time you have to say, well, he also has a ton of financial backing from ownership, which also really helps him do his job. Some Dodger fans think that because they bring up some like Will Smith and guys like that were brought up in the system. And they wanted to like smash it in the Padres fans' faces, throw it in their faces, that the Padres don't have very many guys that were raised in the farm system. They were, homegrown guys, not bought, where the Padres were bought or acquired and not homegrown, right? But come on, let's go look at the Dodgers roster. Their star players, most of them, the big ones, Mookie, Ohtani, Freddie. You go look at the rotation, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani in there as well. Were those homegrown guys? No. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on those guys. And I'm not trying to bash the Dodgers for that. The Padres have done that. The Phillies do that. The Yankees do that. Like, now, Judge was homegrown, but they just gave big contract to Max Fried. They do it. Blake Snell, right? Just gave him a bunch of money. They do it. There's no team out there that's just going to win everything when all of their players are homegrown. You want the best players, they're going to cost you money. You're not going to be able to hit on every pick, and other great players are going to go to other teams as well. So it's just that whole argument that sometimes Dodger fans like to make, I don't really understand why they do that. Like, go look at your roster. But anyway, the Dodgers are the number 1 ranked team among Major League Baseball. Not surprising. And would I rank the Dodgers number 1? Yeah, I would. So, and I'm a Padres fan. So, anyone that wants to try to get at me for, oh, he's so biased for the Padres. Well, I know I am. I'm a Padres fan. But I'll give my respect to Andrew Friedman and what they've been able to do in the sustainable success. But it also helps being in LA and having that ownership group. That's all I'm saying. So the Tampa Bay Rays, they're ranked up there. I understand that with, the like no payroll, but they're able to consistently trade the Blake Snells of the world, the Tyler Glasnows of the world, and then they get back talent, and those guys end up doing well. Now, the one big contract they gave out was to Wander Franco, and we saw how that ended up. But it is impressive. The willingness of the Rays to deal quality players, but that you have to do it because you want to get quality players, more controllable players back in the long run. The Padres have had to do that. The Dallas Stars are ranked up there in the top 5, but let's just go to Major League Baseball teams here. Still scrolling. Okay, the Braves are ranked 12th. So I'm going to go through all the front offices that are ranked here, and the Padres are not. The Braves are 12th. I get it. Sustainable success, World Series. Okay, no argument there. Cleveland Guardians. That's the front office I mentioned more at the beginning of this video. So I understand that. They're kind of like the Rays, where they don't spend money, but they find ways to make deals, and they bring in intriguing talent, controllable talent, right? They didn't, for example, like Francisco Lindor, what'd they get back? They got back Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez. I know they gave him a contract, but then they dealt him, and they're going to be they just look for ways to be sustainable within the market that they're in. They spend more money than the Rays, obviously, but they have a bigger fan base. It's more understandable. But no, props to Cleveland's front office for sure. The Orioles are ranked up there. That's because of their farm system, right? Because you look at their front office, I mean, yeah, they run things differently than the Padres, obviously. Like Preller is more, we're trying to win right now. Let's get these stars in. We'll trade these top guys. Orioles, really bad. They had drafts. They hit on the drafts. And, the Adleys and the Gunners and the Jackson Holidays. No, Holiday wasn't like a huge impact his rookie year, but they get those guys. They come up and perform. So I understand why the Orioles are ranked up there as well. So no complaints so far. But then this is where it kind of starts for me. The Milwaukee Brewers, they're ranked 23rd on this list. And why? I'm fine with it, but I can complain about this more than any of those other ones that I've named so far, because they did trade Josh Hader away. Devin Williams, they traded him away. They haven't been able to get to a World Series. I know they're in a smaller market and they have constraints as well, but it didn't seem like they capitalized on that window that they had. They made it to what? The one NLCS, right? Which is what the Padres did in 2022. So, I mean, if you want to look at it as, okay, David Stearns did a good job while he was there, and I think Matt Arnold won Executive of the Year. But again, that was before this season when these rankings go out, So I understand why they're ranked, because, Jackson Churio and the hype that he had, and they have talent on that team for sure, and they're always a contender, it seems like, for years now in that NL Central. But I think maybe they get more of a lift because the division that they play in. If the Padres played in the NL Central, would the Padres be on this list? If you get what I'm saying. But then you probably would have to say, like, no, you got to give the Padres the same resources the Brewers have. But, I mean, Preller, we saw what he did this past season. And maybe he's better with constraints and having to work that magic. So I'm okay with the Brewers ranked like that. The D-backs, they're 26th. Again, considering that this was going into this 2024 season, I understand the D-backs were, just in the World Series, and they've got talent as well. Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, Ketel Marte, and they don't have, sellout crowds all over the place. They don't spend as much as, the Padres do, for example. So I understand that as well. But I feel like that D-backs team that made it to the World Series, if you put that Padres team last year, like literally last year, so 2023, you put that Padres team in there in that spot and give them those opponents and all that, I think the Padres could have made it to the World Series as well and faced off against the Rangers. Obviously, that's not what happened, and that's, wasting time because those are hypotheticals. Those are things that just didn't happen. So those are the teams that we have in front. Well, the Padres aren't even ranked, but just ranked on this list so far. Now, the Rangers are 34th, and again, going into the year, I get it. Just won the World Series. The Minnesota Twins are tied for 34th with the Rangers. Now, going into the year, they had made the playoffs, and they, exciting talent, also vets like Carlos Correa. There's the intrigue, the interest of Byron Buxton, the talent, but can he stay on the field? There was Austin Martin, Royce Lewis. There are guys there in that lineup. Matt Wallner, going into the year and, watching their playoff appearance. Well, they won that playoff series against the Blue Jays, and then they faced the Astros. You can make a case for that. And the Padres, again, missing the postseason in 2023, and the uncertainty really did hurt the Padres on this list. But if it was redone right now, would the Padres be on the list? Would the Twins be on the list? They missed the postseason, and I think they had their president. No. Was it Thad Levine that left? One of them, either Falvey, I think it was Levine, Thad Levine. I think he left the organization. Their ownership doesn't want the team anymore. I think that's up for sale. So, things can change pretty darn quick. I don't know if the Twins, actually, I guarantee they would not be tied for 34th if we were doing this list right now. So, we do have to take that into consideration. The Yankees are tied 37th on this list. Let's see. The Phillies are 48th. I understand that. That's more of like the Padres model, though, where, okay, spending, maybe not the strongest farm system, but hey, they're contending. And the Phillies, they had made it to the NLCS, made it to the World Series the year before. I get it. Going into the year. I would take AJ Preller, though. Like, if you gave the Phillies and the Padres Guardians payroll or Rays payroll, who am I taking? Dombrowski or Preller? I'm taking Preller. So I'll stand up for AJ, there in that respect. The Mariners, I don't really understand. Dipoto, like Preller, makes a bunch of moves. There's the talent in the rotation. There's J-Rod. But what have they done when it matters the most? The Padres at least had the NLCS appearance in 2022, postseason in 3 of the last, 5 years? Right? 20, 21, 22? Yeah. 3 of the last 5 years, I think. What have the Mariners really done? So that one I disagree with. There's talent there, but they've also, and the Padres have a little bit too, but I feel like the Mariners have underperformed as well. And I think the Mariners, they made the postseason in 23, right? I think so. So maybe that's why, and you feel like, okay, there's the upwards trajectory. But right now, I wouldn't put them ahead of the Padres. Front office wise, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that right now. The Astros are ranked 60th. That's another one. Like right now, entering, okay. But like right now, Bregman's not coming back. They did sign Christian Walker. I would put the Astros on the list, but I wonder where they would be now on the list after this year, where it was a disappointing season for them. They get upset by the Tigers, right? First round, I think, in the postseason. Yeah, just Bregman gone. Who else did they lose? I'm totally Kyle Tucker. They trade Kyle Tucker. So what do you think of that front office right now? It's impressive. what they've been able to do, to be that consistently good. But, the Padres also play in the NL West, and the AL West is an easier division, I would say, than the NL West. But entering the 2024 MLB season, okay, yeah, I understand that. The Mets are on here, 70th. The Reds are if there's one team that I would take off in favor of the Padres, it's the Reds. Why are the Reds on this list? And I know going into the year, right, it was bad. Padres most disappointing season in franchise history in 2023, and there's question marks. But what did the Reds do? What have the Reds done recently? That it's like, oh yeah, they're one of the best front offices in sports. They're one of the best front offices in Major League Baseball. They're a top 10 front, getting votes, top 5 votes for front offices in Major League Baseball. Why? So they have their Tatis and Ellie De La Cruz. There's young talent there. They have Hunter Green. But I would say Preller's done a better job with the roster construction than where the Reds are at. So right now, no doubt the Padres are ahead of the Reds. Going into 2024, you can make a case for other teams other than the Padres. I get that. But the Reds aren't impressive to me. Now, those executives that voted on this, they probably pay more attention to what the Reds are doing, on a day in, day out basis, and maybe their prospects and guys coming up and their young players. But I mean, this is the last 4 seasons for the Reds. 2021, 4 games over 500, didn't make the playoffs. 2022 didn't make the playoffs, finished 4th in their division, 62 and 100. 2023, 82 and 80, and that was considered a surprise year. Didn't make the playoffs. And then 2024, they go 77 and 85, and they don't make the playoffs. 16 games back in the division this past year. So you look at the Padres last, 4 years. Have there been disappointments? Sure, but I can easily make the case that they should be on this list rather than the Reds, maybe even going into this past season, even after missing the postseason. I'm okay if you want to bring another team into this mix other than the Reds, but what? The Reds? That doesn't make sense to me. So there are, pretty much all these teams you can make arguments for, especially going into this past season over the Padres. But yeah, the Reds, no, I disagree with that. So the Padres, they're not a top 70 front office in American sports. They're the major 4 leagues, at least the traditional 4 major leagues. Right now, maybe I would disagree with that, but going into the year, again, that's what was written here in this article. At the start of each season this year, The Athletic polled these 40 executives that helped make this list. It's understandable. I'm not like pissed off about it. It's a list at the end of the day. If the Padres wanted to be higher or they wanted to be ranked in this top 70, then they should have made the postseason in 2023 when they had all that talent. But considering what AJ just did with the constraints that were on him, the limits, the payroll going down significantly, I think he has a case to be in the top 70 going into next season. But I'm curious. Give me your thoughts in the comments. If you went through this entire list, maybe you disagree with some other sports, some other teams on this list, and maybe you're like, maybe the Padres should get a look ahead of another team. If you follow the NHL or the NBA, and you're like, I see the Wizards are tied for 70th on this list. Why are the Wizards on there, but the Padres aren't? You'll know more about that maybe. And if you do, then let me know in the comments.